Is there a value to it from the kid's standpoint that maybe they look at it and say they see us as being fourth and it's just another chip on your shoulder where
Sure.
these things that motivate you, whatever it takes?
Sure, absolutely. You could use that as a motivator. And at the same time, we try to focus on what we can control, and that is clearly something you don't control.
Yeah.
So from a program philosophy and in terms of how we coach the guys every day, we don't worry about that stuff.
As we let the cat out of the bag there, Ball State is picked fourth in the MAC West this year. Toledo was picked to win it. They also were picked to win the Mid-American Conference Tournament on top of that as well. But we'll dive into all of that as we go on here in a couple of minutes. Let's talk about you, though, and talk about your guys. What's going on? Good summer?
It's been a great summer. I can't thank our guys enough for how hard they've worked. You mentioned Dave Feely, and anybody that even remotely understands our program knows how hard he works and what he puts our guys through in the winter, even during spring practice, and then, of course, all summer long. And our guys only get about 5, maybe 6 weeks off the entire year, so they're on campus. They're working hard. They're going to summer school. They're doing internships in the Muncie area, and they are grinding. I mean, they're up early in the morning. They're running. They're lifting. I know we put you through some of the paces this summer, Joel.
Never.
You survived.
Never again.
You survived, but
I've gotten some high fives today, though.
Nice.
So I don't. Hey,
Yeah,
I don't know if that earns me some street cred.
absolutely.
I was told by Darnell and Jake, though, that my form was terrible, which is a fact, but I was just kind of rolling with it.
Well, you look better at running than I would have, so good for you.
One of us played college football, though, so.
Well, yes, very, very proud of that. But it was a great summer, and I really like the work ethic of this group. I really like the chemistry of this group. There's some good leaders in this group. We need to keep developing more and more of those guys throughout all the classes on our program. Our freshmen came in and were very low maintenance, and that is a really good thing. You like to have those freshmen on campus and watch it go seamlessly for those 4 or 5 weeks, and that's exactly what it did. So very, very pleased with where we're at right now. We know we've got a tough road ahead of us, a very difficult schedule, but first things first, it's about the month of August. It's about preseason camp. It's about making the most of those 29 practices leading up to that first game. Coach Feely has done his job getting them in shape so that they can have a great preseason, and now the players and the coaches have to take it from here.
We've talked about program building with you a lot, and it takes some time to get guys in, and you bring in your guys, you redshirt them, they grow, they get older. The depth chart comes out Monday that you have going into camp, and, I mean, you talked about the freshmen coming in and being very low maintenance. I think there were 4, if you count Morgan Hagee, the kicker, that were on the depth chart, 4 true freshmen, which from your standpoint has to be phenomenal, and especially because, I think Morgan was listed as an or kicker. James Gilbert was 3rd at running back, and he was even in for spring. And then you've got Mark Walton and Armani McNulty, the 2 corners.
And Riley Neal at quarterback.
And Riley Neal at quarterback, so
yeah.
5. But they're all listed down there, so it's a 2 deep, and maybe they're the 3rd guy. So you're looking at it now where you've got this depth chart, and everybody's a very household name. Everybody's a common name. And if there's a freshman on there, they're not in a position where you need them to do something right now.
Well, and if you know me at all and our fan base knows me, I like to have a lot of guys on that depth chart because I like to encourage competition during preseason. And competition makes everybody better, and the great ones love competition.
Yeah.
And so the more guys that we can get in the mix and evaluate, whether it's in the spring or in preseason, the better it's going to make our football team. So some of those positions that you mentioned, we might be stretching a little bit to add a freshman on there, with the exception of kicker and tailback, where those 2 guys were here in the spring. But we want to see that competition occur. And I will say this, at quarterback, certainly Riley Neal is going to get a lot of reps during camp because of where we're at from a numbers standpoint there. So I hope those 2 freshman corners are the real deal. I hope they can make the rest of that group better. But you're right, there are a lot of experienced players across all positions at this point, and what we need is for these guys to take the experience that they got last year. It was a baptism for a lot of them. A lot of them have been on the team when we won those 19 games in 2 years, and then all of a sudden they got thrown in the position where now they had to step up and be a 60, 70 play a game guy, and some of them, quite frankly, weren't ready to handle all that responsibility. Well, now they've got those 12 games under their belt, and now we expect them to show that they are a veteran by how they carry themselves and how they perform.
Pete Lembo joins us here. Mid-American Conference Media Day here at Ford Field in Detroit. Is that the hallmark of this group right now? Is that they've got that experience level, they've got that experience factor, and then from a coaching standpoint, I imagine does it make it easier for you in some respects because there are certain things you don't have to teach to a large chunk of guys. You can do a certain level of teaching with them, and then you do a different level of teaching with the younger guys without the expectation that it has to apply immediately.
To a degree, that's true. Absolutely. You have to acknowledge guys that have been in your program 4 or 5 years in the same system. You don't want to slow down their progress when you're teaching new players how to crawl. At the same time, you don't like to take anything for granted, and it's important that you keep sending a consistent message, and that those older guys begin to take ownership of the team, ownership of that message, and demanding those things of everybody else. So you're only going to be as good as your weakest guy. You're only going to be as good as your least committed guy, and the goal is to get that bottom to rise up and fulfill meaningful roles on your team, not just in August, but throughout the season. And certainly last year is recent memory when it comes to injuries and how guys got thrust into roles, very important roles, by mid-season. A Deidre Cromartie, who you would have loved to have redshirted last year, but the circumstances just didn't allow it.
Well, and the better part of that is now you look at the depth chart, instead of going, who the heck is Deidre Cromartie, you go, all right, we're pretty good at safety, or at least at that spot.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, you add him in with Hester, I guess, yeah, you maybe you're more comfortable now than you would have been otherwise.
Yeah, there's a lot more known commodities. And, again, the challenge to those guys is to be able to step up their game to an all-conference type level. If you look back at our 2012, 2013 teams, you had so many guys that just maximized their roles on and off the field. Connor Ryan, who was one of the best captains I've ever had in 15 years of a head coach, by the end of his career, he was playing 15 snaps a game. But I'll tell you what, in the locker room, guys did exactly what he said. Joel Cox won't go down as one of the great defensive linemen in Ball State history, but he was a great team member that made a huge difference. So we need guys to step up into those kind of roles, the Joe Fazios of the world, that became great special teams players and had a lot of respect for the role that they had in that capacity. So we need a lot of guys to embrace their role, expand their role, and the bottom line is execute at a very high level, whether it's 15 snaps a game or it's 75 snaps a game.
And there is nothing wrong with being a great special teams player. It was Paris McCurdy and I sat down yesterday, and we taped an interview, and we'll get into what that's for in a little bit, but played basketball at Ball State and played in the NFL with the Broncos and played a year and then went back to pro basketball. But he said, I had no idea at the time. I could have just played special teams for 10 years and been very happy. He goes, nobody told me that was an option. But there are jobs for that, and there's a place for that, and you need those kind of guys.
Well, when it comes to special teams, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another program that puts the emphasis on it that we do, that puts the meeting time into it that we do, the time commitment on the practice field.
Does John Bonamigo challenge you now, though? Because he's like,
he is.
You got another special teams guru in the league.
I'm sure they're spending a lot of time up in Mount Pleasant on special teams as well. But Justin Lustig, of course, is going into his 5th year with me. We promoted him to assistant head coach this offseason, something that he very much deserves, a guy I completely trust, a guy who's made a tremendous impact on our program in a lot of different ways, and obviously a very, very competent special teams coordinator.
Pete Lembo joins us here, Mid-American Conference Media Day. Your two coordinators on the offensive and defensive side, how are they doing? Year 2 now. Joey's got probably more feet underneath him, if that's a way to say it, and for Kevin to come in and be more adjusted to the system, more adjusted to the guys. How do you see them grow in year 2?
Yeah, very well. You know, I had 2 coordinators that were with me. It seemed like an eternity up until last year. 2 great guys, 2 great friends, and 2 great coaches. And so both Joey and Kevin had big shoes to fill. And for Joey, at least he had been here. I think one of the big things for Joey is just to be himself. I don't want him to be Rich Skrosky, and our team evolves, our team changes, the personnel changes. He's got to be himself, and he's got to do things in a way that he's comfortable with. He learned a tremendous amount from Rich, and he is very well prepared to do his own thing now. And Joey has had a great offseason, and I think with a year under his belt, he's really excited about what lies ahead for our offense. Kevin, of course, was a head coach for many years, and he had been a defensive coordinator and a defensive coach his entire career before being a head coach. So he got used to going back and relinquishing a lot of those head coach type duties, and now being able to sink his teeth more into just being a defensive coach, a defensive coordinator, getting used to the staff, and nice that group has stayed intact. We've shifted some responsibilities around a little bit that I think will allow us to cater better to the personnel that we have on defense right now. But I think Kevin's much more comfortable with our players now that he's been around them for a year and a half, and he's much more comfortable with the coaches on that side of the ball. So I'm looking forward to a great season with him as well.
Another guy in year 2, and for better or for worse, deservedly or not, the quarterback always gets attention. It's always, I don't know if it's the sexiest position on the field. That's where all the attention goes. If you break your cell phone, we dedicate hours of TV to you. But how's Jack in year 2? And does he look different from the standpoint of he knows it's his job this year and he can go in with a different necessarily approach where I don't know if it's a weight off his shoulders, or what do you see different in the way that he's come in this year?
Maturity. That would be the first thing that comes to my mind. Embracing the position. Not needing to be everybody's buddy. You know, sometimes when you're a younger guy and you're trying to establish yourself in the program, you want to connect with everybody. I think Jack is in much more of a position now where he's got enough friends. He knows he's got a job to do, and he knows he needs to do that job well. He took a real leadership role in our winter program. He had a great spring, a very good spring game, 21 of 26, couple touchdowns, and really came out there and ran the show the way you'd want a quarterback to do that. And I don't just look at Jack. I look at the guys around Jack, and you can just tell from Jake Richard on down, Jake being probably our most experienced player, that they have a lot of confidence in Jack. And Jack knows he's got to continue to compete too, because those guys behind him want to play just like everybody else at every other position. But I like his demeanor right now. I like his work ethic. He's had a good spring. He's had a good summer. I'm anxious to see how he picks up and takes another step forward when preseason starts.
More of an active leader, or is it still kind of a tacit leadership at this point where he carries himself the right way and that rubs off on people? Or have you kind of seen him take the reins at times too?
Yeah, Jack's got a good personality. So as he gets more comfortable and as his play improves by example, the vocal leadership will come, and it's coming along. And the good news is he's got the personality to be a vocal leader. You know, sometimes you have a guy that even if he's very much established and very much respected, they just don't have the personality to then be that guy that's impacting others through what they say. But with Jack, you can see that coming along, and you know that potential exists.
How do you like the way the defense comes together as well? There's still some question marks on how I guess that gets molded personnel-wise, especially in the secondary, not necessarily on the front line, but on the second line behind them, and having, as we saw last year, that depth. You've added a lot of guys. You've got some JUCO guys that have come in, be it your Corey Halls, your Rontrell Paytons, Terrence Solomon, guys that have some interesting and intriguing backgrounds of how they got to you.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking, these BCS kind of guys, some of them. Terrence Solomon was at Oregon State, and through whatever circumstance, now they're in Muncie. How do you put those pieces together and kind of figure out and draw out what is within them?
Well, depth helps, and you love to play a lot of people on defense. You love to roll guys through to keep guys fresh, and then also have players that fulfill certain roles for you, third downs, nickel defense, dime defense, short yardage defense. So you can look at our group of defensive players right now, and you can see guys that have the physical ability and skills to fit some of those roles. We need more productivity out of our defensive line. We did not generate a great pass rush with that group last year. We did not create a lot of negative plays compared to a year before when you had guys like Nate Ollie and John Newsom. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that this year. I like how the defensive line is coming along. I do think that an eligible Josh Posley, after sitting out a year as a transfer, will definitely help us. Mike Ayers has had a very good offseason. You look inside, Darnell Smith is going to give you everything he's got every down. So I hope that we have 8, 9, 10 guys that can play on the defensive line, be great in certain situations. Igben Osen's had a great offseason. He's out there running with the skill guys. So I hope we have some guys that can make a difference up front, generate a pass rush up front. Tell you what, your secondary gets better in a hurry if you can generate a good pass rush.
You got to make a faster decision. Suddenly, everything falls into order. Ayers got bigger. That's one of the big things. Winbush got bigger too.
Yes.
And Osa's always kind of been big, but you started to see it come together for him at the end. That rush end spot is so critical. Obviously, you mentioned you like the progress those guys made, but the work that they've put in the offseason from a size standpoint, they were smaller guys. To get bigger, to get faster, that's what really helps you too.
Absolutely. And now take the gains you've made physically, take the experience that you have with another year in the program, and translate that to being consistent and reliable. Right? It's okay to be who you are. Just be the same guy every day. Every practice, every game, so we know what you're going to bring to the table and we can put you in position to be successful.
Head coach Pete Lembo joining us, Mid-American Conference Media Day. I think you've probably got some other responsibilities, so I relinquish you to CBS
I'd love to
ESPN.
just hang here with you, Joel. We could definitely fill up 3 hours, and we could talk about a variety of things. We could maybe talk a little Seinfeld or
You'd be surprised. I still have not sat down and really watched Seinfeld.
Yeah, well, you don't have a lot of time on your hands, nor do I.
I got
Diners, drive-ins, and dives. Did you catch that at all this summer?
That's a good background show.
Okay, because you can watch that in a half hour.
Yes.
Right, you're going to learn something, and then the next time you're going to be off traveling to one of these cities, you're going to know where to go to get the best sandwich.
The app is what you get the app.
Oh, it's done.
The most depressing thing is when you're in a big place, you're like, there's got to be something here. Where was I, like 2 weeks ago? Oh, when I was traveling, I was in Philadelphia, and I opened up the app, and like the nearest restaurant, and I was on foot. The nearest restaurant was like 9 miles away. Thanks.
Well, now that you ran all those 110s this summer, you can get there the next time. So the Rendezvous in Memphis, Joel.
Okay.
That was probably the top spot for me this summer that I got to eat at.
Is that a barbecue joint?
It is a famous barbecue joint.
Okay.
It's in a little alley, and dry rubbed ribs that were just phenomenal. So I would encourage anybody who goes to Memphis for whatever reason, put the Rendezvous on their list of things to do.
The only problem with the show is that you watch it, and it's like 9 o'clock at night. I've already eaten, and I'm watching it, and they're doing some sort of mac and cheese, and then I sit there and go, you know what I could really go for right now? Some mac and cheese. Yeah. And it's 9:30.
Well, you weigh about 130 pounds, so you can afford to put on a couple. But I do want to say this. I do want to thank you for all you've done. You've made the last 3 years. You've been a difference maker for 3 years, and I know a lot of people connected with our program and our athletic department feel that way. So good to have you back, and appreciate all you do.
Pete, appreciate it.
Okay.